So what are some of these biological indicators that we have like a biologically predetermined gender? Because you go on in your book to talk about some literature around toy preferences. You go on to talk about this idea of like self-socialization. If you could speak to some of that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think since children very early have a certain gender identity, we're all born with a gender identity. Maybe there's a few without it, but I think most children either identify as a male or as a female. And then you have trans children who are born as one sex but identify with the other gender. And that happens also very early in life. And I think the self-socialization occurs by focusing on adult individuals of the gender you think you are. So a typical child born as a girl will identify with her mother and copy everything that her mother is doing because that's an adult female who is around. And a young boy will do that with his father. And in primate groups, we see the same processes. Young females pay a lot of attention to their mothers. Young males pay a lot of attention to adult males who are around. For example, there was a recent orangutan study that showed that young females, they eat exactly the same diet of foods as their mother. You know, there's hundreds of plants and fruits out in the forest. They eat exactly what their mother is eating. Whereas young males, they eat different things, probably because they're watching adult males who come by and eat different things. And so that self-socialization applies also to the primates. And what happens in trans children is that they identify with adults of the opposite sex that they're born with. So let's say you're born as a boy, you identify as a girl, you're going to be emulating adult women, like your mother, to adopt them as role models, so to speak. And that's a theory that comes from Joan Roughgarden, who's a biologist, but who's also a trans woman, and who has developed this idea that trans children self-socialize this way.
Okay. So you see that self-socialization in primates. I think there's definitely reason to believe that a similar process occurs in human children as well. In your book, you kind of you talk about you use Sweden, I think, as an example of a country where there's supposedly like a top-down aim to promote this idea of equality, and we'll get to the idea of equality in a second. I think that's another fundamental theme that you argue in favor of, but in different ways. That some of these ideas, like no matter how much or in what ways you try to enforce them, there is this biological predisposition for certain interests to reflect in children.
Yeah, so in Sweden they looked at the toys of the boys and the girls, and they went into the rooms of them and they cataloged all their toys, thinking that in Sweden maybe there would be less of a difference between boys and girls in the toys that they choose. But it was exactly the same as everywhere else. The boys have tools and cars and trucks and sports equipment, and the girls have household items and dresses and cooking equipment and stuff like that. And so they and dolls, of course. And so they found the same differences. And actually, there are studies that indicate that the opinion of the parents about gender has basically no effect on the toy choices of the children. Now, there's of course always exceptional children. There's always certain children, girls who like trucks, and there's certain boys who like dolls. But if you look at the other primates, you see the same difference. And so especially the doll preference. The trucks, they have tried that out on monkeys. They have given them trucks and cars, and it's the males who picked them up. But I have no idea personally what that means for a monkey. A monkey has no connection with trucks, of course. But dolls is different, because dolls resemble young primates or young animals, and the females will pick them up in generally, not the males. The males are not interested. And also, if a mother monkey arrives with a newborn baby in a group of monkeys, she's going to be surrounded by young females. The young females want to touch the baby and hold the baby. And the young males are usually not there. And when these young females get older, they're going to be trusted by the mother. And the mother is going to use them as babysitters. She will leave the baby with them sometimes. And so the interest of young females in infants and newborns and dolls is, I think, a universal primate characteristic. There's even observations in the wild of chimpanzee females picking up wooden logs or rocks and holding them on their belly and on their back and carrying them around as if they have a baby. So if they don't have dolls, they make dolls, so to speak. So that's a very old tendency, and it relates to maternity training. It relates to young females needing experience. It's very one of the toughest jobs for a primate is to raise a kid. And so people underestimate that. They think that's all instinct, maternal instinct.
Right.
It's actually a very difficult skill. So if, let's say you're a gorilla female and you have a baby, the baby is in your lap, how does that baby get to your nipple? It doesn't get there by itself. That's quite a climb, and the baby doesn't know where to go. And so the mother needs to bring that baby to her nipple, and she needs to understand that that's where the baby belongs, and not be frightened by the baby latching on, which may be painful. And so the female needs to have a lot of knowledge before she can do that. And that knowledge usually comes from other females who've had babies. So they need to learn how to care for babies. And that's why at zoos, if they have a bunch of gorillas and they've never had any babies, and let's say one of the females is pregnant, the zoos know that. And they bring usually a human mother in who's going to nurse her baby in front of the gorillas. And she will do that every day for a couple of weeks. And the zoo hopes, and sometimes that works, that the young female will pick up on that.
That's strikingly similar to sort of how human mothers would sort of operate, like new mothers, right? Kind of rely on like the matriarchy or community of women.
There's an enormous transmission of knowledge going on there.
Yeah.
And the same is true in primate societies. And we now have even studies on mice. That young virgin mice, they call it, mice who have never had a baby, need to learn how to carry pups and what to do with them. Yeah.
Oh wow! So this is very basal. In terms of.
Yeah. So we speak of the maternal instinct. I would say the only thing that's instinctive is maybe the attraction to newborns, being attracted to them, but all the rest needs to be learned.